This is the Real Estate Power Play Podcast, getting you the information that you need to be a successful real estate investor. Hosted by Mark Monroe, Ronnie Walker, Gabe Rodarte, and me, Marty Grizzanti. Combined, we've done thousands of real estate transactions. So get ready for real stories and true case studies on finding deals, growing portfolios, and making money. Welcome to the show.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Real Estate Power Play. We are excited to have you today. We are going to talk about how to find motivated sellers and how to talk to them in today's market, like right now today, and what that looks like, some of the changes that have happened with the market going down and the market coming up, and all the different things that are happening. And so we are experiencing it on the front lines. We are talking to tons and tons of sellers, both negotiating owner finance deals, cash deals, wholesale deals, fix and flips. And we get a lot of questions on this, like, how do we find these motivated sellers? How do we talk to them today? What does that conversation look like? And so before this, we're like, you know what, this is one of our most asked for things, at least for me. And we figure we come on and we just kind of talk about the nitty gritty. What are we going through in our business? What do those conversations look like? And how are we determining motivation today? So Marty, Mark, how are you guys doing today?
Doing good, buddy. Good to see you. It's good to see Mark. It's good to see you. Glad to talk about this subject. It's a constant keep learning, keep sharpening the tool to get as good as you can be at this, because this is where you can make a lot of money.
100%. Mark, how are you doing, man?
I'm doing well. Can't complain. I'm always enjoying the life here in sunny South Florida right now. It's been absolutely stunning this time of year. This is when I really enjoy South Florida. But yeah, this is one of the topics, ever since, for I don't know how long I've been in real estate, everybody's always asking, how do you find the motivated sellers? How do you find those sweet deals? And then when you do find them, how do you talk to them? How do you convince them into like a seller financing strategy, or how do you get that deep discount? So it's good. And it's good that we're kind of talking about it in today's environment, because the conversation always changes depending on what type of environment the real estate market industry is in.
100%. So why don't we just kick off from there, man? I think that's a great start. How do you find motivated sellers in today, right? With so many wholesalers reaching out, with the competition, with people getting text messages and calls, and how do you separate? How do you find the motivated sellers? Mark, you want to kick us off with what you're doing and
Sure.
How you're going about this?
So you guys have always known, since you guys known me, I've always used the referral, networking is my biggest thing. So I'm still networking. I used, like, I would say, bird dogs. If you're a real estate agent, you got to be careful of that, because you can't really use bird dogs, but I'm always looking for referral partners to work with. And now, since the market has shifted so much, I've been really relying more on I brought realtors into it. So I'm using a lot of realtors now to go out and find the deals for me in a market that's pulled back. So some markets are still warm, like down here in South Florida, it's still hot. So I'm really not doing a lot of business in the South Florida market, but other markets like Jacksonville, up in the Carolinas, and some of the other places where the market's pulled back, I get on the phone and I start talking to realtors, and I give the realtors my buy box. And I tell them, look for these type of properties, and really look for properties that have been sitting on the MLS for 45, 60, 90 days. And then the sellers are going to be more motivated for me on my strategy, doing the seller financing or purchasing it through one of the seller financing strategies, where it could be straight seller financing, a lease option, or an agreement for deed, or even possibly a subject to. So that's kind of where I've been focusing on, and then still using my other resources and referrals, always out there just networking. So that's kind of where I've been at. And how about you, Marty?
Yeah, you're right. Networking is always going to be the most cost effective, and referrals are always the best because it's warm. The person may have already worked with you. They've already heard about you. And so there's a lot of credibility as soon as you get that warm handshake to the seller or to the person that you're there to help, the homeowner in need. And so that's a great one. Some things that have been working really well for us, right, are Google ads. Google ads have been killing it for us. So SEO, having a website, and then making sure that people can find that website when they, type in those keywords. I think more than ever, this is going to be something where people, and you can do this on your own, truly, but I think this year and in the future, you're going to really want to start doing this. I know it's expensive, but the best leads, I mean, really our best leads where we buy something, right? Not just a lead that comes in and it's like, oh, okay. I'm talking a real motivated seller that we buy the property and then there's enough meat on the bone that we can flip it or wholesale, comes from our Google ads. So that's the most expensive. So, right. So there's a little range. The least expensive is the referrals, still very good. Networking, still very good. And then Google ads are the most expensive. And those are something that we're going to continue to use.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. So how long have you been doing the Google ads?
So our unfair advantage is that was what we did for a living before we did real estate full time, right? So we've been using Google ads and doing Google ads for probably now 24 months and maybe even longer. It might have been like 36 months now with the website that we use. We use a Carrot website, so nothing crazy there. But truly, the differentiator is the Google ad and how much you spend. So we're not crazy where we're spending, tens of thousands a month, but we are spending thousands a month. And I think that's where you need to be to really start picking up steam and getting traction. And I know it sounds crazy when you never done them before, but when you look at it as, okay, you got mailers, you can do the texting. I mean, it is comparable, especially since that lead is reaching out to you. How much better are leads when they reach out to you? It's a game changer. So that it's something that we knew was very effective at our past jobs, and we knew that if we were able to implement it in a way that we could understand and then we could manage, and the majority of the money was going to Google and not the manager, right? Which is what you want to look out for. Then we knew that we were going to have a head up in the game.
Nice. I got a question. This is a great topic if we can stay on the PPC for a few minutes. And then, Ronnie, I want to ask you your question of how you get yours. But back to Marty for a second. Like, dive a little bit deeper in that. Like, what are you, because I see a lot of people come in and try to do PPC and they run it for about 4 to 6 months and it's not cost effective for them. So kind of give a little bit of idea. Like, are you just geo area? Like, what are you seeing for an average of a cost per lead roughly?
So we want to be real specific, and we are really just our 4-county area, right? So we try to get really razor thin on what we're looking for. I would say that our cost per lead right now is around $150. And that's painful when they don't turn out to be much, right? And there are some headaches that occur with what we think is competitors clicking on leads or clicking on ads. But when that $80,000, wholesale or flip comes in, it really eases that pain. So yeah, I would say what differentiates us in what we do with our Google ads is that we also have a Google business page, right? So I really can't stress how important that is. In a Google business page, and you guys can look this up, but it's really like you're listing on Google, and you want to build that out. This is like free, right? So this is where your, business address is. And if you don't have a business address, I believe you can do a PO box. I might be wrong there now. But if not, you could use a home that you own, or, just figure that part out, right? Get something where you can get a Google business page set up. And then what you want to do is you want to get reviews. So people that you've worked with, even friends or family that trust you, it doesn't have to be someone that actually, sold a house to you, but maybe somebody that goes, yeah, this person knows their stuff, right? Someone that, believes in you. Like get some reviews, get a 5-star rating on Google, because then when people find your ad, and I believe that you probably need to be more of someone that's going to take this and say, hey, I'm going to give this a year and see what happens. But check out your competition. If there's a lot of competition in there, then you got to set yourself apart. And I think the Google reviews in our website that we had videos on our website, that sets us apart from the other Carrot websites that don't.
Awesome.
Dude, that's so good. That's really good. Mark, are you doing any Google or PPC?
No, I really don't. I toyed around with it like many years ago, and because we had a advertising agency, digital advertising agency, and it's just in the markets that I was working on, the lead costs were coming in like almost $300, and I guess you just got to play it out and see, how long you can kind of go for and see if it makes sense. We ran it for probably a half a year to 8 months, and then just like the cost was just, it seems like we could make a lot more profit off the referrals. But let's ask Ronnie the same question. Like, let's say, you're asking us this question, kind of give a little feedback on where you're getting your motivated sellers.
Yeah, I actually I've been doing essentially the cold calling, texting, and then direct mail approach, kind of spacing it out. And I met with somebody, it must have been 3 or 4 weeks ago, about marketing actually, and how they're doing marketing, and they have a different strategy where they actually pull every single parcel number in an area and filter it back. And they showed me a difference in my area between the parcels and the data you can get publicly, like on PropStream and ListSource. And it's funny. So there's like 320 something thousand parcels in my area. But when you pull the data, it only filters it down to about 88,000. And so what happens, or what I realized, is that a lot of this data I've been pulling and that a lot of investors are hitting is only within this 88,000 range. And then it's all the vacants within this 88,000. It's all the, all of the high equity or, the tax liens within this subset of this larger data. And I didn't end up buying the service where they pull up all of that. But what I started doing, I was like, you know what, I think that's a huge opportunity for really honing in on one area and getting to know it and driving for dollars. And so what I did is I have 2 areas now. And I've essentially farmed all the data from those 2 areas, gone in from the driving for dollars, taken about a week or 2 weeks to really grab as much from those areas as possible. And then I've been backing out and saying, okay, let me create cold call, direct mail, and text campaigns to those people that actually weren't part of my big list. And that is what has been one of the game changers for me. I'm also focusing on a particular niche list and kind of taking a little bit different direction with lists that come out on a daily basis. I'm still working on that, so I don't want to share exactly what's happening. I'll let you guys know once I pull it out. But that's actually been, I've gotten more leads from that than anything else. The next thing I did is I did the same thing with all of my leads that came in over 6 months ago. I went back to them and I started remarketing to them again as around 2. And that has also, I can't tell you, I was looking at notes, this guy we spoke to like a year and a half ago, he's like, yeah, I'm ready to sell now. You know what I'm saying? He didn't remember us, but it's like, yeah, blah, blah. It's actually one of the ones I'm going to today. And so a lot of what I'm doing is not doing generic marketing, right? We are getting more specific on our conversations. We are changing up our scripts and connecting with people a little bit more. And we can get into talking to sellers in a little bit. But a lot of it has to do with, we don't want to just be the, hey, we'll buy your house cash. Hey, have you thought about a cash offer? Hey, we're taking a really, instead of cold calling 1,000 people with a message, we're actually changing the approach to make it more personal and be like, hey, Mr. So you actually have a lot of options with your house. And we're kind of taking that approach when we reach out. And it's getting people, I can't tell you guys how many people have been like, dude, we just get scam calls all the time. And now I'm in the midst of buying their house for cash, right? And simply because I reached out to them in a different way. I'm reaching out to very specific people, so I know the areas that they're coming in rather than it being scattered. And yeah, that's been kind of my adjustment the last 3 or 4 months.
You said something there a second ago about the follow-ups. I mean, I can't tell you, 70% of my deals come from follow-ups. Before we went live, I showed you that property there in South Carolina.
Yeah.
That came from an offer that we sent 10 months ago, and it just came through another follow-up. So that was pretty wild there. So Yeah, so follow-ups definitely, especially if the market because they may not be interested selling at the time, but then they possibly later on. Good
Well, and
stuff.
I think what happens too is, people think stuff, right? You might talk to somebody and you're like, "Hey, I can buy it for, 220," and they're like, "No way. Why would I do that?" And then 10 months later, 10 months later, you're like, "Yeah, we're probably, closer to 210." And they're like, "Yeah, okay, that might be something I'm looking for." And then you make an offer and they're like, "Yeah, I'll take it." People just have different situations. So I think that's fantastic.
Ronnie, I love it. I think that's it's very interesting. I wonder how that will work for you. I mean, it's already sounds like it's working well. And what I mean by that is the different approach of like, hey, Mr. Seller, and this is what I assume it is, right? Like, hey, Mr. Seller, this is Marty. How you doing? Good. Listen, the reason for my call is I'm interested in your property. I'm not, I just want to be upfront with you. I am interested in buying it, but I didn't know if you had thoughts on, was it something that you thought about listing? Have you ever listed it? Have you talked to realtors about this subject, or do you? I actually, I'm curious how you even approach it.
Actually, this is great. So this is my call. Literally, my call is, "Hey Marty, this is Ronald Walker. How you doing today?"
I'm good. What's going on?
I was actually reaching out. We one of two things: either I sent you a letter or we spoke in the past. We spoke in the past about your property about back in August or so. And I was just following back up to see if you wanted to sell, sometime now or in the future, or if there's anything I can help you with your real estate needs. And then they're like, well, what can you do? And I'll be like, look, you got a good property in a really good area. You have lots of options. And, my wife heads up our team of realtors, which is true. My wife's a realtor. My wife heads up our team of realtors, and we can make it real simple on a cash offer. We also got some hybrid stuff for some of our flips. We've brought together a group of buyers who are buying our personal flips. And we utilize our realtors and the MLS as a tool where we can make it real easy. We call it our concierge service. Are you even thinking about selling? Because I can help you in any way. And then they're like, oh, and then we start the conversation and we gear it. So that's literally how I start almost every one of my calls. And I change it up. So like, guys, don't use the exact same script, because what I'm finding, like, these guys have talked to multiple people, and if they've heard the same thing, it actually shuts them off, right? Mm-hmm. They're like, oh, I've heard this before. But when I'm like, dude, you have lots of options. Like, your house we're in a good time. This is a great time. Like, have you thought about exploring those? And they're like, well, I love options, right? Like, what are my options? It's like, all right, let's talk about it.
I totally agree that you have to create your own opening line and script to be your own, because everybody's out there using the same script and floating around. So especially like you said, I hear the same thing. They always hear that same.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's part of you understanding your, like, who you are, right? What you bring to the table, and just I have a phrase that I like to tell people, like, your intent is more important than your technique, right? So many people are like, what's the exact technique I need to use? And it's like, dude, if my intent is to come in and buy your house, like, I'm going to keep focused on the goal. Like, hey, you don't have to sell, but I'm really hungry right now and I'm looking for a house. This is how I'm buying. Are you open? If you're not, that's cool, but let's explore this if you are. And so that's kind of my approach to most of it, is realizing, even though I want more deals, I want to do more deals, I don't need this person's house to be my deal, right? I've got enough going on that, you reach out to 1,000 sellers in 3 days, and it's like, there's a lot of opportunities there, right? There's 30 houses that I can look at now that people are interested in selling. One of them is going to pan out, and just having a real individual conversation. So that's my goal. That's what I'm doing.
I love it. Because it opens a door for something that we've just implemented recently, which is novations.
Mm-hmm.
And for people, actually, Ronnie, for people that don't know, what is a novation?
A novation, I'm actually the wrong person to ask this to.
Actually,
Marty probably can't.
Marty should answer it since he's doing them.
Yeah, there you go.
Well,
I know how to do it, but I don't necessarily know how to explain it the best.
Well, here's what it is for me. Find a professional that's done it before. Find a realtor who does these. So it's very niche. Those are very tough to find. So I don't want to be an expert in this. I don't need to learn another thing. I am well aware of kind of what it is, right? Which is basically the seller is on the understanding that I am going to take this property. I'm going to give them a certain price. That price is guaranteed as long as, depending on a couple of things in my clauses. But as long as everything turns out, we're going to take that property and we're going to list it on the MLS for them. We are the concierge, as Ronnie said. We're the people that a vacant house. They live in Florida. There's a house in Rochester. Aunt Sally passed away. And it's still a solid property. So there's not enough equity for us to just do a cash offer, right? Where they're just like, yeah, I want to get rid of it. There's like, well, it is a pretty solid home. Don't you think we could get more for it? But I don't want to use a realtor and go through that whole, they're going to make me want to do this and the paint and the floors. I go, listen, we'll take care of all of that. But we are going to put it on the market so that we can get as much exposure as humanly possible. But we're going to handle all the realtor fees. We're going to do the little bit of this and that in the clean out. If that's acceptable for you, I want to work with you. Now, I don't know the exact terminology of what that is, but all I know is that we agree to a price and that price is theirs as long as it meets our clauses. And then we're going to put it in market to everywhere we can. Number one being the MLS.
Well, and if I might speak to this, because I've been like that, we are implementing that. And what I've found is people really want a simple process. I think I, in the past, have overlooked the desire for people to have extreme convenience because people are like, no, I don't want the cash offer. And I think the way things are framed and the way they interpret them is really what it comes down to, right? Is if you can say, hey, let me help you do this. This is an option. Do you like it? A lot of people, and I've been in the place in the past where you're like afraid to tell the person you're not going to be the one buying it.
Right.
But when you realize that the entire real estate industry is people talking to realtors who aren't going to buy it. It's like, that's normal for them. And it actually removes people from just like, give me your offer, give me your offer, give me your offer to what are you trying to do? Let's unpack your options. Here are 3 primary options. And then I throw in the creative stuff as well. But then it gives us things to talk about and be like, and it actually works in with the way I make offers too is, hey, I would love to buy your house. Like I'm hungry. And for me to buy it, a home run deal would be blank, but I don't know if you're going to do that. And then it gets them to be like, man, do I want to sell to him or you know what I'm saying? It's like, this is the ultra easy option. Here's easy, but it's a little bit harder and it takes a little bit longer. And here's the harder option, right? You can fix it up. You can do blank. Like, what do you want to do? And
let me add to that, Ronnie, because there's 2 things that I think people can do that will help them when they're talking to a seller about doing an ovation. Now, if you're lucky enough, like Ronnie and Mark and I, to have a thought leadership platform, right? So Ronnie is the creator and founder of the Michigan, West Michigan
Real Estate Association.
Real Estate Association. Boom.
Yep.
Okay. Mark is the creator of a 30,000 member and growing seller financing membership. I have the Upstate New York Real Estate Investors Association, right? So when I go to a seller and I say, hey, Mr. Seller, like, I'm the founder of the Upstate New York Real Estate Investors Association. I have 5,000 members. These are who the people that potentially could be buying this property.
Yes.
So that's why you work with me, because I'm this, and I'm going to be able to open up this property to all these different people. So yes, could I give you a cash offer? We already agreed that's just not quite enough. And I want to pay you more. And I think you deserve more. And here's how we're going to do it. I have this team of buyers. And oh, by the way, we're also going to, because we are working association with a realtor. Again, that's my partner. So you're not going to pay his commission, but we're going to have that access to put it on the market. So all we want to do is get you that number that you really want. Fair? Great. Okay. Now that's if you have that thought leadership platform, which not everybody does. But what you can say is, hey, I'm a member of the Upstate New York Real Estate Investors Association. There's 5,000 of us. And I know that I could bring this property to that membership. You could go at it as the director or you could go as a member. Either way, you should feel confident in making sure that this is something they can do. Now, yes, you want to have that partner who that realtor, if you are one or if you're not, that you're going to work with, but you can still go at it that way. And I think that's helpful.
And I want to jump into that. You guys are pretty much summarizing its credibility. That's really what it's coming down to. So make sure when you're talking to sellers that you do have some credibility behind you, and you have that. And even if you're new in this, partner up with somebody that's been in it for quite some time and they had that credibility aspect of it. So and then from there, once you have that credibility, they feel more comfortable with you. Then you have those options, like what Ronnie was saying there before. It's always good to listen to the seller and coming up with options. I just did a deal with one of my referrals that send me a lot of deals. I get a lot from hospice nurses, and I had this family reach out to me. The daughter reached out, and her parents were elderly couple. Your father was ill, and the wife, she was elderly. She couldn't take care of him, so they had to move 3 hours away to live with the daughter. But the house was just too much for them to get ready to put on the MLS, and because they've lived there for like 30 something years. So they reached out to me and I said, you know what, just take what you want. Whatever you don't want, just leave behind. And I ended up, they left everything behind. Even a cable box was left behind. And, the way I look at that, they're paying me for a service through a form of equity. So that goes back to what Ronnie was saying there about a little bit of having options. So, just listening to them, finding out what the options are. And I actually ended up doing a seller financing on that particular deal where she wants a monthly payment, because the way she's looking at it is a Social Security check. She wants that monthly payment over 7 years, and then she wants to be paid off, or then the children wants the capital. So, those are the type of things that you kind of reach out. And on the Ovation agreement there, Marty, you also can do, I just want to plug this a little bit. You can also do a rehab. You can go in there and put $20,000, $30,000, $50,000 into the property and increase the value. And then wherever you, that profit margin, that's what you get wherever that price point that you agree on. But it's good how you guys are doing. You're just kind of getting it cleaned up and bringing the price up a little bit and creating that service. So good stuff, gentlemen.
Yeah, no, I think I remind myself that as a real estate investor, we are seeking opportunity, right? We're asking ourselves, where can we make money? And I think that the people who fall out, the people who die in the business and disappear, is things go wrong, things get harder, and then they get overwhelmed with emotion, and then they pull back, right? And they limit themselves, and they get less and less creative, and they're like, well, I'll just do this. Well, would you take cash? No. And then they just gradually do less and less. I think as things get harder, you actually have to do more, guys, right? Like I have a phrase I was telling you guys beforehand. If you take care of the work will take care of you, right? I stole that from somebody. There's actually, I think, a jazz musician who says, if you take care of the music will take care of you, right? And it's, I think that's the idea here, right? That we're looking to increase our knowledge, our strategies, where are the opportunities, and what are people doing in the marketplace, and how can we best serve them as investors? And I
that comes back down to, Ronnie, it's if you're thinking about the seller first, right? If you're constantly thinking about the seller, then you're right. The score will take care of itself.
Yeah.
Because if you're constantly trying to find new avenues and new ways where you can put in the most value to the seller, it doesn't necessarily mean money, right? Like Mark was just saying, the person wanted to have it cleaned out, but you have to be able to do that, right? You have to figure that out on your own. And that's through all the things that we probably didn't really get into today, which is like listening to the sellers and talking to the sellers, right? And really, we did. I think it was a nice way of, like Ronnie was saying, the concierge type of approach. You want to be a consultant. You don't want to come in and just try to beat someone over the head on being a one-tool player, say, hey, here's my offer, and that's it. No, I'm calling you to really find out if this is something that I can help you with. And if not me, I want to point you in the right direction. And if you're doing that and you have that intent, then you're going to win.
I love that. Mark, you have something to add?
Yeah. How many times, like, if you talk to a seller, right, and you go into it, but they end up referring somebody else to you because I've had that so many times that happens, that where, they reach out, it wasn't the right fit, what I was offering to try to help them out. But then they had a conversation with somebody else and like, oh, reach out to Mark. He can kind of maybe be able to help you out and try to go through that. I actually had somebody And I'm sure this happens to a lot of you guys where people reach out to you and just want some advice. And even though you're not purchasing the property, you're providing value to help these people out. And then in turn, you end up getting some more referrals from them. That happens a lot.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
Yeah. Well, and I think a way to tell is you actually notice it in the conversation if you're providing value. You'll see a switch in their mind. And then what I've seen is they'll say something like, you really need to talk to my husband, right? About like, not as in a pass, because there's sometimes where they're like a pass off, but there's other times where like, no. And then you start talking, they're like, you know what? Like, here's my husband's cell phone number. Can you call him? Or, hey, you know what? My mom is actually in the process of moving in with us. We're not actually interested in this house, but we'd love to sell our mom's house and see what you have to say. Like, would you be interested there? And now they're asking you. Those are some of the key ways that you guys can kind of sniff out if you're actually providing value to them. Because they'll start with this, well, what we really need help with is ...
When they ask questions, then you know.
Exactly. Someone said, I can't remember who it was. Someone said, in your process, when you're asking questions and you're providing value, like Jesus asked 307 questions in the Bible and he only answered 3. It's like, are you providing value through trying to understand their situation, or are you just telling them what you want? Very, very interesting. So, Mark, how are you talking to sellers, man? What does that look like for you?
I go into, in what you said in the beginning, I'm always building rapport with them. I'm getting to know them before I even talk about business. So I would say probably 80% of my conversations with sellers is really to getting to know them on a personal level, knowing the dog's name, what sports they go. I just build a relationship with them. And I really do want to get to know them. And when I get to know them in their conversation, a lot of the information that I'm trying to pull out of why they're selling just comes out freely. So I'm asking questions, and then and I'm getting that information of why they're selling. And then what I tend to do is, instead of like saying, well, if you don't sell, this is what's going to happen. This is what's going to happen. I'll say, then I'll ask that question. And I know both you guys do the same thing. If you don't end up selling your property, what's going to happen?
Yeah.
And I just shut up.
Yep.
And then they think. And then instead of you saying it, they're saying it. And then they're convincing themselves more in their own mind. As you guys know, when you're dealing with sellers, this whole industry is psychological.
Yes. 100%. Well, so I was on the phone the other day with a guy, and it was actually a referral through a JV partner, and he wanted me to make a seller finance offer. And he's like, here's the situation. He's got the zoning issue, and I'm talking to him, and I'm like, what are you going to do if you don't sell the property? And he's like, well, I'm actually going through the zoning. I'm waiting. I was like, okay, well, if you were to hold long term, what do you want? Like, what would you look? And I'm walking down. He basically says, I want a third of the sale price as a down payment. I want this as a monthly payment. And the deals wouldn't work, right? And so I transitioned in the conversation, because I'm not really in the business of like making an offer that someone's just going to get angry at. Like, I want to walk them to it first. And I got a whole commitment process of things that I'm looking for. But I transitioned. I was like, what are you really trying to do? And he's like, honestly, I've only got 7 years until I retire. Or he said a number. And I'm just trying to double my money and make as much as possible. That's what he told me. And so I was like, okay, cool. So like, what's in your 401k? That's what I asked him. I was like, what's in your 401k? Like, how are you doubling that? And he's like, no, not at all. I don't know what to do with that money. And I was like, actually, one of my favorite things to help people with is actually walk them through how to take their investment retirement money and use that on real estate, which you're already doing, and make more and more money. He's like, dude, I've been looking for someone for like 5 years to help me with that. I've never found anybody.
That's great.
Long story short, we're going to meet on Thursday, me and this guy, about his money. I get off the phone, and the other guy calls me, the wholesaler. He's a good buddy. He's a good guy. But he's like, dude, that went sideways. He's like, why didn't you just make an offer? I was like, man, my approach is to really try to help them, right? I'm not really in the industry. Like, so I actually told the seller too. I was like, dude, I'm trying to get this thing for nothing down and pay you monthly to show you how to maximize the value out of this property over a longer term and make you literally $100,000 more. on this deal. But what that means is I'm not bringing any money to the table. I'm helping you in a strategy maximize the value. And in turn, I'm trying to create a cash flow as well. And he's like, yeah, I'm not really interested. And so I told the guy, I was like, he literally gave me 3 strikes on why he's not going to do this. And but guys, I think it just goes to that mentality of, are we here to just make an offer and see what happens? Or are we here to really solve their problem? And the paperwork is a formality of a conversation we have. And that's really my approach and my goal to that.
Nice. I know, Ronnie, you got to run here, so
Yeah.
I'm going to jump in and start asking Marty some questions. But
yeah, thank
Marty,
you guys so much. I'm heading to an appointment, so I appreciate
Nice.
All right, good luck.
well, definitely
Yes.
do some plugs here.
Yes, do it. Yeah, guys, I'll keep you updated. Keep watching this. Actually, let me say this real quick. Learning how to talk to sellers and learning how to find them is the engine to this business, right? Is the engine to this business. And that's why we do Real Estate Power Play, right? That's why we're talking here, is so we can unpack what we're doing in our business. Like, I don't think any of us are interested in putting on a show so you guys think we are doing blank. Like, we just want to talk about, this is why we founded this, is we were just having conversations weekly. We're like, dude, let's just talk about what we're doing. Like, this is valuable. And that's what we want to give you guys out there in the audience. And each one of us has a certain niche, right? Mark's focused on owner financing and seller financing. Marty is focused on the upstate New York side, and he's got a whole platform there in the commercial, with me in West Michigan, and just like really focusing on people finding deals and negotiating. Plug into a network, reach out, because we want to help you find more deals. So anyway, there's my plug. See you guys.
Take care, Ronnie. Marty, back to that last question I was asking you. Like, let's dive into, like, when you're talking to sellers, kind of give us a little feedback of what your key points are when you're dealing and talking to sellers and what you're trying to accomplish.
So I'm trying to accomplish them to remember my name. So if I can, like you were saying in the beginning, build rapport, if I can find something around that property or connect myself to that property somehow, and that might be, for example, if we're talking about a single family home, you might have gone to the school that is near that home, or maybe there's a park nearby that you may have played some soccer at, or there was an event. Oh, that's right near Party in the Park. I love Party in the Park. Do you guys go there in the summer? And then now you're not talking about the property, but you're really, your main priority is just you're connecting and you're figuring out, because now their guards not going to be so closed. They're going to let you in a little bit and they're going to talk to you. And then all of a sudden the property will come up, but it might actually come up with a different problem. Yeah. The property, it was a rental that you're talking about. And, here's some issues I'm having with it. Or, yeah, you probably noticed, if you've been around there for a long time, that, the chimney's starting to crumble, and we're trying to figure that out. And it's like, okay, yeah. And then, so it's like, that doesn't happen every time, right? But it only happens though, when you try to build rapport. So yeah, number one is I want them to remember my name, and I want them to remember something positive about me. And that's from building rapport. And then it's asking questions, and it's really being interested. If you can be genuinely interested, I'm genuinely interested when I'm talking to people. I want to really know how they bought the property, why they bought the property, what was it? Did they live there? And these are questions that you can ask. Again, you still have to build up that rapport first in order to ask some more of the sensitive questions. And maybe you have to also give something as well. Like, when our property that we bought, similar situation, similar, problem happened, and this is how we dealt with it. Is that something that you have done before? Have you had to deal with something like that, Mr. Seller? Hey, yeah, we actually have a problem on one of our properties right now. Similar situation. We can't get one of our tenants out. Is that something you've had to deal with? So you got to give to get as well. But yeah, number one, try to connect. You got to be able to separate yourself. And I think that's through listening and asking questions.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head about being genuine and really caring. That's really what it comes down to. You have to care and really give, and not just look at trying to make money, like hit that home run. It will happen if you're providing service. and really guiding them through the process and really helping them out and making a win for the seller, then a win for whoever your buyer is, and then us staying in the middle. That's it. So when I'm always looking at a property, the first thing, and you said it before, the first thing is always listening and what's the seller trying to accomplish. That's the first thing. Then the second thing I automatically look at, okay, who's my buyer going to be for that property? Is it going to be me, or is it going to be an end buyer? How can I, those are the two things. And then the third thing is I'm always looking at is the risk. All right, what am I going to do here to help everybody out? And what kind of risk is involved? Am I going to end up losing money on this, or can I make a couple of dollars on it? So those are the three things I always look at. But you hit the nail on the head. It's just really listening to the sellers and trying to find out their needs, like what Ronnie was saying. I was talking to one of my JVs the other day, and he had a deal, and the seller was open to seller financing, but the property was worth $128,000 at ARV. And the guy wanted $30,000 down. I'm like, this doesn't make sense. Almost putting $30,000 down. Like, I could take that capital and deploy it into about 4, 5, 7 assets. So we kind of dive in. I'm like, what are you trying to do with that capital? And he said, I'm retired and I want to buy a camper, and I need $25,000 to do the camper. And then, so then we started talking to him, and we're running the numbers, and we're going to cash flow enough. So I said to the seller, this is what we'll do. So we're going to go ahead and put $3,500 down. We'll pay from closing. And then what we'll do is there's monthly cash flow there. You go ahead and get financing for $25,000 on the camper. And then what we'll do is on the 20th of every month, the servicing department will have it set up where our accounting department is automatically going to send a check directly to the camper company, the finance company, for that. So because of that, you listen to the seller and you dive in deeper and make it where it's a win for everybody. He's like, well, how do I know if you're making a payment? So I said, this is what we do. Most of these portals or these companies have a online portal. So every time there's a payment made, an email goes out. So what we'll do is we'll create a generic email for that particular property. So when it goes out, you're getting notified. And then our accounting department, we're also being notified, making sure the payment's there, or if there's any notifications. So that's one of the examples. But, you hit the nail on the head, is just being genuine. That's really what it comes down to, is just being genuine. Now, when you're listening, like, what's your main objective? Are you like looking at, I'm assuming you're kind of analyzing the deal in the back of your head and trying to figure out what you can do for that particular seller.
Yeah, you want to have your exit strategy, right? And again, you're calling it, so it should be in a some sort of list that you want, right? Don't waste your time. Certainly, if that's not something that you think you can exit from. But yeah, potentially maybe in that conversation, there is some stuff that comes up. And Mark, that's brilliant about you're just really wanting to, the thing is, I think with asking those questions too, is that the seller would never have done it. Most likely would never have bought in that camper, or it wouldn't have been as successful because you were willing to ask the questions. And really, you were like a consultant for the camper company too. Like, you had to find the camper. I'm sure you had to do a bunch of different stuff that not everybody would want to do. And that's a part of it, is like, how much are you willing to do? And how much are you willing to like really listen? And again, if you go in it with, I just am genuinely curious about this and I'm interested, I think it goes a long way. But I'm sorry, what was your question?
No, it's just being like when you're talking to sellers, when you're analyzing a deal and trying to figure out. But I want to ask you another question. Like, what about just getting out the phone with the seller that it's not going to go anywhere and it's going to just waste your time and energy and trying to make a deal work? What's your thoughts on that?
Those are tough. Those are tough. I think sometimes it's wrong place, wrong time. And it may be best to, give them a break and call them back. It might be better to have another person on your team call. If it's not going anywhere, don't waste your time. Just politely say, thank you so much. I just don't know if it's going to fit. I'm not the right buyer, but is there anybody else I could help you, refer you to? Like, I know you were mentioning, Mr. Seller, that there's a crack in the foundation. Do you need a mason? I know a great one. I know you mentioned something about your roof leaking. Do you need a roofer? I could refer you to one. And, just doing that is very powerful, because not only could you potentially refer them to a friend or someone that you've worked with in the past that can help them, but they may just say, oh, wow, that's something that no one's ever actually done for me. I'm going to, you might get off the phone with them, but they'll have your phone, hopefully you told them your number a couple of times, and they might reach out to you and say, hey, listen, the roof's really getting bad. I'm out of here. I've already left the house, or yeah, it's vacant now. And I want to get rid of it. So you never know. So you just try to make a very positive and approachable way of talking. And then also the same way when you're ending the conversation.
It's good stuff. All right. So yeah, I think, is there anything else that you want to kind of go over? I think we kind of touched base on a lot of things of like finding properties and motivated sellers, and then talking to sellers. Hopefully this episode is great for everybody. If you please want to follow us on our YouTube channels called Real Estate Power Play. Check us out on your favorite podcast channel. And then we also have a Facebook group called Real Estate Power Play as well. So this has been great. Marty, do you have anything else you want to put in?
No, excellent time. It was very interesting hearing about what Ronnie's doing. And I think there's some really cool things with that concierge type service. And I think we all need to be figuring out how we can help sellers more, and constantly learning the new strategies that people are doing is a really great way of doing that. Listening to podcasts, listen to this podcast, share this podcast, and we will be back next week.
Great stuff. Take care, guys. Bye-bye. This has been another episode of Real Estate Power Play, guiding real estate entrepreneurs to a brighter future. If you liked what you heard, consider subscribing wherever you listen to your podcast, or follow us on YouTube at Real Estate Power Play.